Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Crazy House World Championship. And we've got a spur-of-the-moment affair here with TwelveTeen facing off against International Master opperwezen. And this, like I said, is a spur-of-the-moment match. Opperwezen, as you may or may not know, made it into the candidates tournament yesterday by beating Masalenka in the playoff after a convincing performance in the tournament to decide the 8th candidate. So anyway, yeah, glad that opperwezen has reclaimed his spot here as the 8th man, and he's playing his first match here. So this should determine whether or not he gets off on a good foot. And so far, TwelveTeen, I believe, is on 2 out of 2 matches, so batting 100% or batting 1,000 here in the candidates. I think he has the best record out of everybody so far. If we hop on over to the standings right now, TwelveTeen is on 2 points, but he's played only 2 matches, whereas Blitzbullet and Jan Lee have played more. So should TwelveTeen win this, it would put him in first place, I believe. And should opperwezen win this, it would start him off on the right foot here in this tournament. So anyway, that's where we are with the kind of the meta match, if you will. And let's delve into the actual match as it stands right now. We had a d4, d5, and this h3, g3, bishop, g2 fianchetto that TwelveTeen has been employing of late, and fairly even position, equal material. We have these nice Irish pawns, these tripled isolated pawns here on the king side, but that's not really a weakness. Well, it is a weakness, and it also controls a lot of territory, so it's not horrible. TwelveTeen defends his f4 pawn with a bishop that can be taken, and then g3 does become something of a tender spot, and that can be attacked. So opperwezen's deciding whether or not he wants to take here. And just recording. We actually have 13 specs, which is good to see, since this was such a last-minute sort of scheduling. So anyway, opperwezen doesn't actually take on g3 yet. He's just going to let that hang in the air. I guess the threat is stronger than the execution sometimes. So it's always an option for him. This bishop isn't really doing all too much now that opperwezen has castled out of the pen, so maybe eventually you want to exchange this bishop for this knight. TwelveTeen is just going to kind of just gradually amass all his forces on the king side, bringing his rook over, controlling the e-file, putting his king on h2, where it sits a little bit more safely perhaps than it did on g1. Also it covers these squares from captures. And the rook comes into e5. That's an interesting little blockade he has going there, contending that he doesn't really mind giving up the exchange. It's just a trade, really, and he just wants to put a piece on this e5 square. Opperwezen doesn't want to allow that and pushes f6 to deter the rook away from that square. So maybe you want to take here and get the bishop, but that's also going to give this knight some life in the position and target g3. Yeah, so he wants to defend g3. Just wants to remain ultra solid here on the dark squares. Does TwelveTeen. But it looks to me like opperwezen has managed to gain some initiative here. I think the dark squares in white's camp are perhaps under a little bit more pressure than white's light squares for the immediate future. So he's gonna that's an interesting decision. He's gonna take on f4 with the queen, take the queen back. And now, yeah, I'm not really sure what these pieces are doing over here on the queen side. They seem less active than these pieces that opperwezen has around TwelveTeen's king. Opperwezen also up on the clock. Yeah, a lot of pressure on white's position here. Pawn on e2. You can always place a piece, one of these heavy pieces, on the first rank now, should you be so inclined. You want to find a way to get rid of this knight so that you can place a rook here, a queen here, mate. So at d2, that's a strong move. He's now going to be able to queen at his leisure. Yeah, so opperwezen coming out of the gate swinging here. He's up 20 seconds on the clock, and it's going to be too much. White resigned. First game to opperwezen, 1-0 opperwezen. Nicely done. That's a statement, for sure. All right, 1-0 opper. And opperwezen also decides to go ahead with 1d4, as did TwelveTeen in the first game, with the white pieces, and we're going to get this St. George setup from TwelveTeen. Let's see what opperwezen does, what his setup of choice is here against this setup. Okay, an early knight advance targeting the weak f7 square. You can always take here, take here. This color complex is always going to be a little bit weak now. Now, does black want to try to defend this somehow, or does he just want to continue with his plan, develop some pieces, and just recapture the king on f7 should opperwezen be inclined to take there? Yeah, I don't know. There's already some pressure here, So he is just going to play e7 and allow this should opperwezen want to go for it. Maybe just taking on h7 is stronger. You can take here with the bishop even, and then you're just threatening at g6, pawn at g6, I mean. The knight is covered by from the capture of the queen by the bishop, so that's not a worry. He's just going to take on f7 though, and get his queen into the fray. So I wonder why he didn't just want to take this pawn on h7. Maybe he thought it was a little bit too slow. Either way, there's nowhere he can block. There's nowhere TwelveTeen can block here on this f-file with the knight, because f6 is covered by the pawn, f5 is covered by the bishop and the queen, and f4 is covered by this bishop and the queen. So do you want to step back with the king and allow a pawn to appear? You have to step back up to e7, or if you step to e7 directly, you can still play at f6, takes, takes, knight takes, and the bishop's going to come out and pin. And you can't obviously run back to g8 because that's just going to be mated in 1 with a pawn at f7 checkmate. Of course, TwelveTeen is not going to do that, so he's going to make this pawn appear on f7 instead of appearing on f6. But I imagine after king runs up, just bishop g5 check, the knight's going to block. Yeah, so he's going to be getting his material back at least after you capture here, if you want to capture there. That's just going to be equalizing after he sacked the knight on f7. But his pieces are more active. Black's king is on an awkward square blocking development, and he's under some pretty heavy fire again. Yeah, so I like the way opperwezen has played this. If you allow black to get all the tempo he wants and get developed comfortably in this sort of line, then yeah, he can achieve equality or even come out better from the opening after playing this sort of stuff. So I think opperwezen has taken the correct approach. That is taking advantage of this extra the tempo, the time that TwelveTeen has spent on the king side, putting some the queen side, I mean, putting some pieces over there and moving the knight a few times, to f6 and then to d5, and so he's taking advantage of that to play in the center, to capture on the king side, and to provoke some weaknesses. Let me make sure everything's up and running. I think everything should be good. Okay. So, okay, that said, we're about equal on the clock. I think opperwezen has managed to scrounge up a little bit of material by capturing that rook there. And TwelveTeen is just going for fast development and safety here. He just constructed something of a wall around his king, got his pieces out, didn't even want to take that. That might be a little bit too slow, a little bit too dangerous. So he allowed this rook to fall to get his king over here, and again erect this pawn wall and get some activity for his pieces. But he may be safe for the moment. I don't see anything immediately crushing, but neither should he be better. Opperwezen has elected to sack his queen for a knight on d5, probably just to provoke a weakness here on e6. But is it enough? It's probably good, practically speaking, for practical play with time considerations, etc. But not sure if that was the most precise. However, yeah, he does bring his light square bishop back into the fray with this. Yeah. Rook at e8 is nice. It traps the queen. There's nowhere to go. You can take here twice and get this rook defending, but instead he's going to allow that to drop with check just to get his knight active and create some threats of his own. That would be mate, of course. Queen at e2. Opperwezen will not allow that. So the knight also defended e6. It's going to recapture on e6. Okay. Okay, so opperwezen is... I think he's maybe given away a little bit too much of his advantage that he had. TwelveTeen can step up to the 7th rank here, yeah, instead of allowing the rook rook drop in the back rank, which would be check. I don't see a good follow-up, and as I say that, he's found this knight b8. That's a nice continuation, but the bishop does cover the first rank from heavy drops on that square for black. But opperwezen, even though he had a great attack there, it looks like he's frittered it away a little bit here. He only has 2 seconds, and it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough time. TwelveTeen has managed to win this game, I do believe. Yeah, as opperwezen's time expires, TwelveTeen manages to play some great defense there in that game, and some practical defense, playing quickly, staying up on the clock, pressuring opperwezen to find the most precise attacking continuation, which opperwezen just simply wasn't able to come up with there with such little time on the clock. Okay, so now TwelveTeen is going to play the same setup, one tempo to the good. Yeah, 1-1. 1-1. So opperwezen is going for the same early knight advance here, pressuring f7, but the difference is he's down a tempo. Queen can step up and guard that square for TwelveTeen, but now he's going to elect to take on this h2 and or h7 square, which is what I was advocating last game, but he didn't go for it. I think it probably was better. Maybe not, but anyway, he's gone for it this game, so let's see how it pans out. Pressuring the dark squares, white castles to the queen side to get safety. Okay, you can take here. You can take here. Okay, no, you don't actually get those 2 pieces. If you take here, then you can advance and get a queen for your trouble. So that's probably not. That's why he elected to take here with the queen first, getting 2 pieces for the queen. White seems pretty safe there on the king side or the queen side for now, but neither does white have any pieces in black's territory really. Nothing on this half of the board. Alright, so what's the game plan from here for white? I don't see any immediate obvious weaknesses in black's camp, so maybe just want to kind of gradually accrue a positional advantage of sorts. I'm trying to figure out right now how you do that. What's your plan? A plan. My kingdom for a plan, right? So where are the weak spots in black's camp? Maybe g7 could be a spot. If you get a knight here on this f5 square, he's going to use that square for a bishop instead. Pressurize. Now he has 2 pieces on this h7 square. Okay, but that can be defended fairly easily with just a pawn at g6, or he's going to exchange some stuff first and create his own attack. That's probably better than just defending. Counterattacking is almost always better than just straight up defending. Offense is the best defense in many scenarios. Alright, CD. You can always play a queen on the first rank if you really want to, but it doesn't accomplish much because white doesn't even have to take that. He can just either drop his rook back should you place a queen on one of these squares, or just proceed with his own plan and allow you to take here if you want to, and it's not really going to lead to much. He has so much coverage around his king. So now he does take on h7, and now there is a back rank weakness for him to exploit. For TwelveTeen to exploit, of course. So what about a rook at g8? Takes, now you have pressure on f7? Or is there something more immediate? Pawn at g6? Nah, you can probably just take that and you don't necessarily have a good follow-up. Or you can drop the bishop back and then you're threatening at d7, but again, that's not really going to lead to much, I feel. Rook at g4, that's a nice move. Skewering g7 and the queen here on g3. Yeah, not sure what the best plan for black here is. You have to move this queen away. and then you allow this to drop. So maybe his plan is after it takes, you want to take here. That's probably a better move than just taking immediately, because then you attack the queen with tempo, and now you can take here with tempo. That would be check. And so black's kingside will be collapsing with check, it seems. It's a nice little intermezzo instead of taking here directly. If you had a bishop along this diagonal would skewer those two queens. So again, he's just going to let this linger, this threat on the g7 to linger while he's trying to create some... Oh, interesting. Okay, so he's going to allow that queen to drop, is opperwezen, in order to ameliorate some of these threats. Having a hard time evaluating this position. It's probably just going to come down to the clock, I imagine. Opperwezen, you gotta start motoring, man. You have less than 20 seconds remaining. You can't allow TwelveTeen to W up on the clock like that. Yeah, you just gotta start making moves here. Oh, that's gonna be dangerous. Yeah, if you take there with a knight, then a queen at e8 is gonna mate. Takes that promotes because you have this bishop battery behind it. So okay, game to TwelveTeen. That's 2-1 TwelveTeen. Okay, so we're going for something of a little bit different setup here. We have this Firefly Gambit instead of the St. George. And it's not accepted. Okay, so opperwezen allows TwelveTeen just to recapture on d5 with impunity. Doesn't want that extra pawn, he just wants that time for development. Taking on c3 and creating this slight weakness here. You can just play pawn at b2 or something should you just want to shore that weakness up. Or you can play maybe bishop at h4, something along those lines. Instead, he's just going to allow this, he's going to advance this pawn so it doesn't lose material, but he's going to allow this c3 weakness to remain. Okay, well, if black wants to, he can always snag this bishop. Instead, white is going to pressure d5 and give up this square. Okay, so pawn at h3, and now you're going to play at g2, which under the best circumstances, you don't really want to allow black to sack there and draw your king out. But in this particular scenario, it doesn't seem that black has a terribly dangerous follow-up. Although, again, yeah, he's going to exploit the c3 square. And now once you get this diagonal, you're going to be able to place a pawn at g4 and come in on the light squares. So I'm not sure whether or not opperwezen should have allowed this stuff on h3 and g3. Now h5, yeah. TwelveTeen is just putting all sorts of pressure on the light squares. So at d2 drives the king away, and it also lends some support to the g4 square, the light square there, which is going to be TwelveTeen's point of entry. So he can just take this queen off now, right? I'm not sure what's stopping him from doing that. A few moves ago, anyway. Okay. Well, anyway, opperwezen moves his queen away, so that's not allowed anymore. And opperwezen gets 2 pawns for the piece after a pawn appears on g4. So if you take here, maybe bishop at b5 is black's plan to win this bishop straight up instead of just trading it. If you had 2 knights, white could consider a knight drop here and then a knight drop here, although I'm not sure whether or not you'd even want to give up 2 knights for that. Anyway, that's not in the position regardless, because he doesn't have knights, and TwelveTeen is going to replace that pawn on h5 and continue his attack on g4, h3. So you can allow a pawn to appear, or a diagonal piece, a pawn or bishop to appear on g2 here, so long as you keep your heavy pieces in hand for the rest of the game, and don't allow black to get any heavy pieces for the rest of the game, which is an important consideration. It really affects the way you play and the way you think and the way you strategize for the rest of the game, allowing this sort of structure here on your king side. Sometimes it's okay. Sometimes you can get away with it, though. Okay, so he's going to open up the G file. A rook can't always swing to that open G file, but he's also going to be able, white is also going to be able to exploit this this G7 square and block it off with a check. So all in all, it's probably a good plan for white. And now he gets rid of this pawn on H3. So yeah, white's fighting here for sure. I wasn't so impressed with his play out of the opening, but from the mid game onward, I think he's done a fairly good job here of riding the ship and giving black some troubles for sure. All right, so he takes that rook with check. Pawn appears back on G6. The knight can swing to H4, although that does open up the bishop. So knight here, the king wants to step back. It steps back to H7, but now that allows the bishop to come back in with check. You're going to push, and if you sidestep, the bishop crucially covers this diagonal. Okay, opperwezen again, down on the clock. The knight comes in, forking. You can't really. Yeah, I don't think you. Okay, so I was going to say you can't take that queen with the knight because it's not with tempo. He does manage to pick it up with tempo, taking with the bishop instead. Bishop f4. Okay, so if that's taken, then there's knight checks, which is important. Does a queen want to appear on this square? It's not going to be mating though, is it? Queen here, king back, rook on, king there. What's your follow-up? Okay, that's a nice follow-up. You're going to take on h5. The queen covers these squares, crucially, but yeah, it's not going to be enough. He had an interesting attack there, and I wonder whether or not it would have panned out in the long run. But again, he just left himself short of time. So 3-1 to 12-teen. So despite the clock situation, I think both players have been playing excellent games here, putting on a great fireworks display. So now we got the two knights, knight f3, knight c3, and transposes into a pretty normal d4, d5 system. Quite symmetrical here on move 9. And okay, that changes the structure a little bit. f3, forcing the knight to make a decision where it wants to go. It captures on c3, and now white has this great mass of pawns here in the center, and it's always going to be a question of whether or not black can exploit perhaps this d3 square, or whether those squares are going to be, or this pawn mass is going to be a strength for white, controlling all this central territory. But again, it's still fairly equal here. It's just a slight imbalance in the pawn structure. Alright, so not f6, e6 is going to be the weak square that white is trying to pressurize here with his active play along the e-file. And often you'll see a bishop appear on f7 or back on these light squares to shore that up, but instead opperwezen puts a rook on the e-file, contending it's more important guarding e6 than it is keeping an eye on f7 since his queen is on f7. Alright, still play is focused on this e6 square. Maybe black, when black has some tempo, he probably wants to target f4 or d3. Is there a way for white to keep the pressure up here? Maybe f5 was interesting there, maybe. Instead he's going to move his queen away so that it opens up the rook indirectly against black's king here, or queen here I mean, on the e-file, but it also menaces some possibilities of the queen swinging out to the king side in certain situations. So now he pushes here f5. Okay, so that was probably the difference, is removing his queen and opening up his rook here before you push f5. Bishop pressurizing h3. You can take that, but it's probably not anything special after the recapture. This is now a weak spot for black to concentrate on, but it doesn't have a knight to place on one of these two squares. And black can always short up with just a pawn at g2. That's simple enough. Okay, so a few heavy piece trades here. Both have a rook in hand. Now the queen is going to snake its way into a more active square on f4, although I personally don't really like that. He could play, maybe he was trying to eye this for rook at c1, but putting his queen on f4, while it is active and it looks a little bit like it's in white's territory, it's just going to be hit. Yeah, TwelveTeen's just going to be able to hit it with this rook at g4, and opperwezen thinks he doesn't want his queen to be hit anymore and lose that much more tempo, so he elects to take that. So I'm not sure how wise queen f4 was. Maybe he probably should have placed one of these pieces in his hand on the board on an active square instead of moving his queen again. But okay, so a queen for a rook isn't the end of the world here. At d7, trying to put some pressure on trying to get some foothold in on black's back rank here. That's what bishop at e6 is. It both cuts off the rook from the e-file and guards c8 from a queen at c8, because after takes you can you can recapture that with the bishop. Bishop at e8, okay. Trying to distract this bishop away from this again. And if that's taken, takes, then this will hang. Okay, so this will hang. TwelveTeen has found some pretty precise moves here. He's playing well, but opperwezen does have a lot of coverage on the king side still. He's kind of just crouching the ball here and trying to play defensively and to not allow white too much play. Yeah, he's got a gingerbread man points out that black has his bishop barricade. And he also has 3 rooks in hand. That's not something you see too often, because it's not often the 3 rooks are traded. Okay, so you don't want white too much play along the c-file, so black blocks that off, also trying to attack this knight on f5, which is a powerful piece there on f5. A knight on this square for white or a knight on this square for black is often a very powerful piece, looking at these squares respectively. He's going to allow this to drop. That's interesting. I'm not sure if that was best, allowing this bishop was kind of a linchpin of black's defenses, and yeah, as soon as that drops, those dark squares drop, and that's going to be all she wrote. Okay, so allowing that bishop to drop on f8 was probably the end of the game there, and TwelveTeen has taken a commanding lead in this match, 4-1 to TwelveTeen. And now opperwezen is going to go for this d4 g3 fianchetto setup, and TwelveTeen is going to follow suit there. We have a symmetrical Grunfeld, you might call it, type setup. Which is something I used to play a heck of a lot from both sides, actually. I don't play it so much anymore. I've kind of gravitated towards more active openings of late. More active, more, I don't want to say theoretically sound, but ambitious, maybe more theoretically ambitious openings. But anyway, yeah, I still kind of revert back to this setup from time to time. It's a fun position to play, and it allows both sides just to play crazy house as opposed to venturing into a whole bunch of theory where the common motifs are very well known. This has more room for nuance and subtlety and kind of outplaying your opponent over time. Yeah, Schwing pointing out that rook e8 is kind of an interesting move. Not an intuitive move, and maybe not the best move, but we've seen it from both sides. opperwezen played it last game, and TwelveTeen played it this game, removing the rook from the f-file and allowing a piece or pawn to appear on this square, which is a bit curious. So yeah, thus far, white opperwezen here has managed to create some weaknesses in black's camp, namely the light squares. So black will want to preserve this light square bishop. Whereas white doesn't have any weaknesses to speak of, really. Maybe h3, but he has strong presence on the light squares here. So Black's king is nicely tucked away on h8 too, so even though this bishop has been traded, white doesn't have any immediate play along this diagonal. Alright, so still fairly equal here, I'd say. Bishop reappears along this diagonal. It's also, you might think, oh, I can just allow this to drop, but you don't want to just allow this bishop to linger along this diagonal because it will drop. It will threaten a pawn drop at e2 instead of just capturing there immediately. So you either want to move this rook or you want to defend this square somehow, which is what white accomplishes with bishop at d3, not allowing a pawn to appear at e2, which would be pretty devastating. So we gotta trade along the light square bishops on this d3 square. And yeah, I'd say 80% of the play should be focused on the light squares at this point. These light squares, white should be attacking these light squares in black's camp, and black should also be probably looking at white's light squares. So what about bishop a6? That can probably just be blocked, c4, but then this would hang, so maybe not. Yeah, so maybe this is a possibility, although it would drag the queen out if you block the bishop. Not sure about that. 12-10 instead plays a more conservative but probably more solid move with bishop at g8. Just defending all these squares. That's a nice piece. And opperwezen is going to try to trade it off. Now he gets tempo on the queen. Maybe you just want to give that queen up and put another bishop on these light squares. He does. 12-10 does so. And allows this queen to drop, but stays very solid on the dark squares, which is probably a reasonable trade-off. White now up in material, but his initiative has somewhat dissipated, it seems. White now replacing some pieces on the light squares and staying solid at home. 35 spectators. Alright, good stuff. Seems that recent tournament, the 8th candidate tournament, has kind of reignited some interest in this event, which is fantastic. Look at all these knights that black has. White has the major pieces and black has all these knights, although now one's exchanged. Which is often something you want to do. If you have too many pieces of one certain type, it's probably a good idea to trade one of those types of pieces, and in this situation a heavy piece, the rook, for something a little bit different, in this case a minor piece, the knight. So the rook for a knight is probably a good exchange there for opperwezen, so he can attack different squares differently in conjunction with his major pieces. So okay, it's again looking like it's going to come down to a time scramble here. Opperwezen this time up on the clock, which is a nice change of pace for him, pressurizing 12-10 to come up with the goods with very little time to think. Queen exchange on c6, interesting. So now black has two queens, but can he make do? Can he make some inroads? I would say probably. He has some pressure already. That's interesting. I'm not sure why opperwezen thought it was necessary to give both those queens up. But too late to question that decision now. He's just going to have to weather the tide here, weather the storm, and probably try to... Yeah, now he's going to be able to exploit the back rank here. Get one of his queens back. Pawn at h6. Yeah, you just got to keep playing quickly. Keep pressurizing these dark squares, making a lot of trades, exposing his king. Keep the pressure up on the clock. That's what you got to do here. Knight here. Okay, queen there is going to... Yeah, that's going to be mate. Queen there. Oops, queen there is going to be mating. Well done to opperwezen to strike back there and keeping the pressure up throughout that game. So 2-4 opperwezen. And remember, opperwezen can't allow one more game to drop without dropping at least the tie, at least the half point. So it's 2-4. I'll put it the other way as I 4-2 to 12-10, and opperwezen fighting back to keep his chances at a full point victory alive. Is it 4-3? Have I miscounted? Maybe I've miscounted. Okay, so swing confirms that it's actually 4-2, as I thought. So anyway, I've missed the first half of this game. Not sure what's going on here. let's try to take a look. Don't mind me if I scroll back through this real quickly. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so e4, d4. We have that's knight c6. Queen comes out early. Okay, this is an interesting line. It should be 3. That comes out. Manages to win a piece here for a few pawns. Takes a bishop, and now okay, so fairly equal, I'd say. Although black has managed to equalize 10 moves deep in this opening, which is something you probably don't want to normally allow as white. But yeah, I think black is perfectly fine here. He has very active pieces, and even some pressure on white's camp. But okay, it's just a game. 12-10 is by no means really worse here, I don't think. Okay, so this is nice. Now you have 3 pieces glaring down at a2. Can't really defend that square. Can you just take here? Take here, and then take here? I mean, that looks awfully promising. In fact, opperwezen has a lot of promising moves here, which he's got to consider. Okay, this is interesting. Maybe before taking here or anything else, he's going to try to distract this pawn. That can't be taken because the queen can take this knight, and now there's pressure both on white's king side and his queen side and his king side, and his center too. As a matter of fact, this queen nicely centralized. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure on both sides of white's camp here, which is not going to bode well for 12-10. Let's see how he decides to defend this. Knight at f4 is a possibility. Taking a look at all these squares. Instead, e4. You can take here first before moving the queen. Rook g1 is going to happen. You don't want to take that and allow the rook to drop with a promotion. So now you can take that check, or you can play here, scooping up this queen. I think you're safe at home, so I think you're safe to scoop up the queen. Yeah, a pawn here doesn't work. You can just take that. I don't see any other way you can draw the king out, so I'm not sure why he didn't decide just to take the queen there. Yeah, I wonder why he didn't take the queen there. Maybe there's something obvious I'm missing here. I often miss most obvious tactics when I'm commentating. So that could very well be the case. But okay, he decides not to take the queen instead, just to take d3 with check instead. This is a discovery, and yeah, there's terrible pressure along white's light squares here. How do you capitalize? There's got to be some strong continuation here. You'd love for another knight in hand to place on one of these squares, but you don't have it. You don't have it, and I'm not sure how you get it. At c5, trying to draw this knight away, and you'd love to be able to capture that, again, to get another knight in hand, but white is going to counterattack. Yeah, so opperwezen has somewhat run out of steam here with his attack, and now white is going to be able to counterpunch, placing a knight finally into black's territory and pressurizing some of his squares. This knight drops back. Again, you don't want that knight to fall, because a knight in black's hand would be dangerous, but it does relinquish this f3 square. That's guarded by the bishop. King's going to have to step to one of these 2 squares. You can promote if you want to get a heavy piece in hand. You can just take that. So where does the king want to step? It steps to c2. Okay, at d3 is a possibility, forcing the king to a dark square, although I'm not sure how that immediately helps you. He's just gonna hack that rook off, which is good. If that's taken, you don't want to take that, because you can play rook at f1 and then promote next move, and yeah, so you don't want to take that and give all sorts of tempo and attacking opportunities to black here. So instead, the queen's going to swing out to e5, giving up this rook cold in order to get his queen into the action. Because black has a lot of threats here. You can even under promote to a knight here in certain variations. Okay, white is trying to drum something up here with 15 seconds to opperwezen's 30 seconds on the clock. All right, we've got a rich position here, very rich position, with black attacking with the minor pieces and then 3 knights along the first rank, and white with some heavy pieces taking a look at black's king side and threatening mate. Maybe not actually mate, but threatening some stuff anyway along the back rank. The king is stepping out to the center. d5. Can it survive? There's no way it survives out here, right? You don't want to block. Where do you want to step? You want to step to b7. What's your follow-up? There takes. And that's mate. Bring the knight out at last. It remained undeveloped the entire game. But knight g8 to e7. There on move 36, finally developing that knight with checkmate with the king on c8. That is picturesque if I've ever seen a picturesque finish. Nicely done there. That was fun. That was fun. So what a fight back. Here from opperwezen. That's 3-4. 4-3 to 12-teen. And opperwezen still keeping his chances alive for the full point. If he were to win this one with the white pieces, he would tie the match up at 4-4. It's 4-3 now, and he's playing his favorite pet Nimzo Larsen system with the dark square bishop fianchetto. opperwezen probably plays this the most out of anybody in the top 10 or in the top ranks at all. opperwezen is the most ardent practitioner of this Nimzo Larsen type stuff with b3 or b4 on move 1. So he's very well versed in this sort of setup in this line. You don't want to allow a pawn to appear at b2. So you gotta address that before you do anything else, probably. Maybe even placing a queen on this diagonal. But then that can just be hit with like a bishop or something, so maybe that's not wise. If you just play pawn here though, you can play queen c1, so that's something else you gotta look out for. These weaknesses you've given yourself by trading this dark square bishop. I like black here. I like black here. He wants this knight. Okay, so maybe you want to attack f6 and just allow these sorts of threats to appear on the board. 6, queen here, then you block somehow. No? Okay. So you're just going to move the knight out. That's good. Now the queen drop on the first rank is no longer a really pressing concern. But these dark squares are still weak, which TwelveTeen is exploiting. He has this threat. He has this nicely active light square bishop, and this dreadfully active dark square bishop. So I think black is certainly better here, and he's also up on the clock. Black is for choice. Let's see if opperwezen can defend this. He's been playing very well so far. Yeah, so now that you've allowed this, it's going to be awfully dangerous. You can just take that, I think. You can even consider taking with the king, so you have no knight drops or anything. And a bishop drop here can always just be blocked with a pawn drop. So you can consider taking that. Although, now that I think about it, there was a knight drop because of the pin. Although he could just step back and remain safe with his bishop on the square. He didn't want to go into those complications, so he's taking with the bishop, which is, of course, perfectly viable. A perfectly viable way of playing. So the knight appears on f1, and this is probably a mating attack for black. King has to step up to f3, else rook at e1 would mate. Yeah, I can't imagine that this is going to be playable for white. Pawn here is possible, or just scooping material up with a queen. Yeah, so white resigns, conceding at least a half point to 12-teen. 12-teen now 5-3 and securing at least a draw on this match. Can opperwezen win the next 2 games to tie this up? Remember, it goes to 10 games. Whatever the result, 10 games are played. Gonna have the 4 knights. Alright, this is a line I like to play from the black pieces, and e5. Now that's a line I haven't seen. e5. Well, that's curious. 12-teen doesn't want to get involved in those sorts of complications, so instead he just develops his piece, penning this knight. Allows g2 to fall. Okay, so castling rights have been denied. But white has pressure with this pen. White has a nice center and pressure on this pen. So you can take that and then perhaps replace a knight on e5. That can be taken, takes, takes, to get 2 pieces for the queen. It's a possibility. Or you can take and then maybe bring your queen to this square first. Or he's going to take here. Okay, so this is a different kind of iteration. Takes with the pawn. Okay, he wants to keep this bishop on this square, but it does, yeah, there are some weaknesses here. The white queen does step to this square. Just nicely centralized above the white king, as is black's queen here. And all his pieces are now coalescing around his king. So that's a clever move, I think. It's distracting. It's trying to win this c6 pawn. It's the idea. If you take there a few times, it hangs a c6 pawn. But okay, so in response to this knight at c8, black says, anything you can do, I can do better, and he puts his bishop on f1 in the back rank as well. So a curiously symmetrical attacking plan here. Queen steps up to f3. Okay, so that opens up this pin, but also introduces possibilities of sacking on f7 in some lines. So is there anything concrete here that black can do? Okay, knight h4, very natural. Kicking the queen away, putting some more pressure along on the square. And now he elects to get rid of that knight. Yeah, that can't be allowed just to sit there forever attacking that queen. Because if that were ever taken, you can't even capture back, because then f7 falls. If you take here, takes... You can't take here, because that's a pin. So black might be emerging, maybe speaking too soon, of course, but black might be emerging better after these complications. Heiser very adroitly says either white or black is better here. A very, very apt statement there. Very insightful statement. Must be true. I don't know, I wouldn't mind playing with the black pieces here, actually. White's probably considering the sack. No, that's not even a possibility, because queen at e2 would mate. So yeah, he places a pawn at e2 so that square is occupied, and the queen can no longer threaten mate there. Yeah, okay, so this knight did hang. He's just going to allow that to drop. And there also, I think the threat was, if you recaptured, maybe the threat was just placing knight at f3. That's probably what I was failing to mention there, because of this pen. So that couldn't be taken. And of course, the knight is already on that square, so it can't be taken with the queen. This would hang, king would be running. This would be a weakness, and yeah, it'd be too much. So we just had to allow that knight to drop. Black is better here. So I think that initial assessment of mine was accurate. Black is better. Although he's allowing the queen to drop. Was that necessary? You can take here, so maybe it's just a trade. Okay, so let's calculate this. If you take here, what does white have? Knight here isn't anything. He doesn't have any pawn drops. I think you can take here, right? Or is there something I'm missing? Or is there something better? Maybe you just want to... No, you can't take back because queen takes here. What about knight takes? What am I missing here? Why can't you play that? Knight drop here? No, I really don't know. So it's just going to move this, distract this queen away so that you can take here on e5. And now, yeah, I don't know. He's allowed white too much. He can take, king here, pawn here, king there, bishop comes out. Okay, now that's interesting. So he's not going to take there first. That's very important. So it doesn't allow this pawn at e2 move to happen. So now he's going to take on the square. This can, I was going to say that can be taken by the knight, but maybe not. Maybe not. There's only one knight drop here on b8, but the square is covered by the knight, so it can even step back to e8 here. Very, very keen play here by opperwezen, kind of surviving by the skin of his teeth, but also, meanwhile, creating his own attack. Very interesting stuff. We have 5 seconds for opperwezen. 12-16. 16. Ooh, it's going to be too much. Yeah, he's allowed white to get this tempo back. and that's going to be mating, I think. And black resigns. Yeah, okay. So he managed to drum up some very interesting play there, but wasn't quite enough in the time scramble. So that means the full point is going to TwelveTeen here, 6-3. The match, the full point goes to TwelveTeen, but we will play this last game for future tiebreak considerations. Every game is important. Alright, early pressure on the light squares for opperwezen. This is the last game here. opperwezen playing for both tiebreaks and pride here. See if he can put this last game away. I'm not sure why TwelveTeen allowed this. This looks pretty nasty. Yeah, the queen comes out because otherwise pawn at f7 would be mate. Smothered mate, which of course you don't want to allow. Okay, you can take here a few times. You can play like at d7 or something, or you can just drop the bishop back. You can attack the queen. Knight at f3 is no, then this hangs. You don't want to do that actually. So I guess opperwezen's considering whether he wants to sack here, whether he wants to place a pawn first, or just drop the bishop back even, or do something else entirely. Yeah, don't listen to me, guys. opperwezen's a better player than I. He instead counterattacks this knight. Huh. Okay, so what's the idea? He wants to drive this knight away, or exchange it, but why? Why is that knight controlling more valuable squares than that bishop? Not sure. I'm not sure, honestly. I personally would have preferred to keep this pawn in hand. Just, I mean, pawn here isn't doing too much now, but it might later. So anyway, he's just going to go for this trade, but I think in so doing he's allowed TwelveTeen to get ever so slightly more comfortable on the light squares. Maybe there was no better play. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But okay, the knight appears on d5, and now that is a nice square. Maybe this was his plan all along, attacking the queen and c7. Now opperwezen's master plan is coming to fruition. Yeah, okay. So maybe it wasn't accurate to take that to recapture f6 with the queen. King steps up, white wins the queen. Interesting. Huh. So white is now considering sacking on f7. That's probably not even necessary. Just knight f3, simple development is probably better, because now you're threatening to bring this knight into the attack. Or take here and then play the knight into the attack. Probably just here is going to be enough, and then you can take here a few times. King steps back and take here and win that bishop. Maybe you want to take here, or maybe even just drop the knight back. Maybe even pawn here. No, you don't want to play pawn there because then you can take. Queen appears on e8. Okay. Not sure why you couldn't take there. There's probably something obvious I'm missing there, but he allows a piece to hang. Okay. Well, the queen comes into the fray here on g4. Ever a nice square for a queen if you're playing white. He has these two pieces bearing down on black's king side, with this knight kind of just dangling in limbo here on e6. Black creating luft and attacking the queen. Queen sidesteps here to f5. So what are white's immediate threats though? Can he take here? Is that mating? Okay, it's going to be he just scoops up another piece, and it's going to be several pieces to the good, with a few pieces on black's king and too much initiative, too much material to come back from, says TwelveTeen. But anyway, very nicely played from both players. TwelveTeen coming away with a full point, but opperwezen fighting back to make this a very tight match at 4-6. So then result here is 6-4 TwelveTeen, and good game to both players. Very happy to see opperwezen back in the mix and playing as very creative, very resourceful, very enterprising, and mystifying Crazy House in these candidates matches. So well played both players. I'll update that in the standings shortly, and I'll catch you guys later for more candidates Crazy House World Championship action. See ya.